Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. No matter when you're watching, welcome and drop a comment. What town are you tuning in from? If this story popped up for you, it's meant to be heard. So, subscribe to the channel to catch more like this. The sun was baking the earth and my soul when I woke up that relentless June. 3 months without a drop of rain in the rangeland of Harmony, Montana. The skinny cattle dragged themselves from shadow to shadow, seeking relief under the dry sagebrush. And me, a widower for 3 years, trying to keep things going on a ranch that felt too big for one man. Ever since Mary passed, taken by a nasty cancer that ate away at her bit by bit, the house has been too quiet. That heavy silence that hurts, reminding you every second that you're alone in the world. The huge rooms echoed my footsteps, meals were silent, and nights dragged on like years. It was a Thursday when I decided to head into town for feed and medicine for the cattle. The old pickup truck groaned going up the hills, but she was still holding on. The radiator was boiling, the bald tires were slipping on the dry dirt, but it was all I had. Just like me, old, tired, but still kicking. On the way back, with the sun burning my head even inside the cab, something made me turn onto a road I hadn't used in years. I can't explain why. Maybe it was missing the times I'd come this way with Mary to visit a friend who lived at the end of the road. Maybe it was just the habit of avoiding the well-known route, of delaying my return to the empty house. The dirt road snaked between abandoned pastures. Dry grass as far as the eye could see, anthills scattered like red clay towers, a barbed wire fence rusted by time. Dust billowed behind the pickup in thick clouds that stuck to my sweaty skin and blew in through the open window. The steering wheel was as hot as a branding iron when I spotted something in the middle of a clearing that made my foot slam on the brakes. It was a pile of trash scattered on the ground. Torn plastic bags flapping in the wind, rotten food mixed with rusty cans, broken bottles glinting in the sun, dirty rags spread out like flags of surrender. The kind of place where people dump what they don't want anymore, out of sight and out of mind. But in the center of that filth was something that made my stomach churn and my heart race. A girl was lying there, a real person in the middle of that trashy hell. I turned off the engine with trembling hands and got out of the pickup. My wobbly legs barely held me up. The smell hit me like a slap in the face, a mixed odor of abandonment and rot, sweet and sickening at the same time, that made my stomach churn. The buzzing of the flies was deafening. They swarmed over her face like a black cloud, landing on her thin arms, on the cuts that marked her pale skin, on her parched lips. It was as if she already belonged to them, as if they had taken possession of that discarded body. The dress, which must have once been white or beige, was now torn and filthy, stuck to her body by dried sweat and the red dust of the road. Her face was as pale as candle wax, her lips cracked by the relentless sun, her eyes closed in an expression of pain, even in her unconsciousness. Her brown hair was spread on the ground, full of dry leaves and dirt. She looked like a broken doll that someone had thrown away with the rest of their life. I knelt beside her, waving away the flies with my hand. They came back persistently, impatiently, as if I was interrupting a feast. The smell was stronger up close, not just trash, but hunger, fear, despair, the smell of human misery. "Hey, can you hear me?" I whispered, gently touching her shoulder. She moaned softly, almost inaudibly. Her skin was too hot, a high fever burning inside. She was so weak that she couldn't even swat away the insects that crawled on her face as if she were dead. A wave of hot rage surged in my chest. A rage greater than the one I felt when Mary died, greater than the one I felt when the doctor said there was nothing more to do. Who had done this? Who would throw a human being away like leftover food? What kind of monster was capable of such cruelty? I picked her up carefully, as if she were made of glass. She was too light, as if hunger had eaten away all the substance of her body, leaving only skin and bone. The flies still tried to land on her as I walked quickly to the pickup, cursing each insect that insisted on following her. I laid her on the seat carefully, took off my shirt, and covered her. The fabric was soaked with sweat, but it was clean. I started the engine and drove away, as if fleeing from hell itself, flooring the accelerator for the first time in years. The way back home never seemed so long. Every time I hit a pothole, I looked at her, praying that it wasn't too late. Her breathing was weak but steady, like a whisper of life, stubbornly refusing to fade away. In the rearview mirror, I saw the cloud of dust we were leaving behind. And further back, almost disappearing in the distance, that pile of trash where I found her. A place that would haunt me forever, but that had also given me a new purpose, taking care of someone who needed it as much as I needed someone to care for. On the empty road, with the sun beginning to set on the red horizon, I didn't just take home an injured girl. I took home the chance to discover that there was still goodness in the world, and that maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for a heart that thought it had stopped beating 3 years ago. At the ranch, I carried her straight to the guest room, a room that hadn't received anyone since Mary died. The white-painted walls had damp patches, the mattress was a bit musty from time, but it was clean and smelled of lavender, which my wife always put in the closets. I laid her on the bed gently, as if any sudden movement could break what was left of life. She was so thin that her body barely made a dent under the sheet. Her ribs showed under her skin. Her wrists were as thin as a child's. Her sunken cheeks showed weeks, maybe months of malnutrition. I went to the kitchen to heat water on the wood stove. The kettle took forever to boil, or maybe it was the anxiety that made time drag. While I waited, I kept looking at her through the half-open door. She was breathing slowly, unevenly, but she was breathing. The flies were gone, but the marks they left were still there. Small red dots on her pale skin, reminders of that hell where I found her. When the water was lukewarm, I returned with a basin, clean cloths, and the glycerin soap that Mary used. I started by washing her face with infinite care, removing the caked-on dirt, cleaning each scratch from the thorns. The water in the basin turned dark as I washed, slowly revealing the pale skin beneath the grime. She moaned softly when the water touched the deeper wounds, but she didn't wake up. It was like caring for an injured bird. Any movement too strong could end the little life that remained. Her hair was tangled in a mass of knots, full of dry leaves, dirt, bits of twig. It took me almost 2 hours to untangle each strand patiently, washing little by little, untangling with my fingers. It was pretty brown hair with reddish highlights that must have shone brightly in the sun before all this happened. After the bath, I looked in the closet for something for her to wear. At the back of the drawer, I found an old nightgown of Mary's, made of soft cotton, which smelled of mothballs and longing. It was big on her thin body, but it was clean and had the color of hope. I prepared some lemon balm tea. My mother always said it soothed any pain of the body or soul. I managed to get her to drink a few drops, even with her eyes closed, dripping it slowly between her cracked lips. Then I made a very thin chicken soup, just broth with a few grains of rice, and managed to give her a few spoonfuls. With each sip, I managed to get her to swallow. I felt a relief. At least she wouldn't die of hunger. I spent the whole night in an old chair next to the bed, waking up every half hour to see if she was still breathing. The silence of the house had changed. It was no longer the heavy silence of loneliness, but the protective silence of one who cares. Now I had a reason to be awake, a life depending on me. At 4 in the morning, when the first roosters began to crow in the distance, she moved her fingers. A movement so small that I almost missed it. But that made my heart leap. She was coming back, little by little, from the dark place where she had been lost. The next morning, when the sun came in through the window and lit up the room with a golden light, she opened her eyes. They were big and dark, like 2 deep wells reflecting the sky. But they held fear, a lot of fear. When she saw me sitting in the chair, she tried to shrink against the wall, like an injured animal that doesn't know if whoever approaches comes to help or to hurt more. "Easy there, little one," I said in the softest voice I could muster. "You're safe. Nobody's gonna hurt you here." She looked at me without saying anything, her eyes scanning the house, assessing every detail, looking for exits, calculating if I posed a danger. I got up slowly from the chair, making slow, predictable movements. "I'm gonna make some coffee," I said, smiling. "You must be hungry." I left the room without hurrying, leaving the door ajar so she wouldn't feel trapped. In the kitchen, I prepared a nice tray. Homemade bread with butter made on the ranch, coffee with very sweet milk, thin slices of fresh farmer's cheese, a papaya smoothie made with milk. Simple food, but made with care. When I returned, she was sitting on the bed, still suspicious, but less frightened. She had managed to comb her hair with her fingers and looked more like a person, less like a ghost. "What's your name?" I asked, placing the tray on the small table next to the bed. "Louisa." Her voice was hoarse, scratchy, as if it hadn't been used in a long time. "Pretty name." "I'm John. John Smith. This is my ranch. You're in Harmony, Montana." She picked up the bread with trembling hands, as if she didn't believe she could take food without asking permission. She ate slowly, chewing each piece carefully, like someone who hadn't seen real food in a long time. With each bite, a little color returned to her face. "How old are you?" I asked. 18. I turned it last month. "Where are your parents?" The question made her stop eating. I saw tears forming in her dark eyes before she lowered her head. "My mother died last year, cancer. My father, I never knew him. It was just me and her. And now I don't have anyone." The way she said that, with a sad acceptance of someone who had gotten used to loneliness, broke my heart. I knew that feeling well. The emptiness of not having anyone in the world who cares if you wake up or not the next day. "Where did you live?" "With my stepfather. He married my mother when I was 12. After she died," her voice broke. She tried to drink the coffee, but her hands were shaking so much that she almost dropped the cup. "Easy," I said, holding the cup for her. "You don't have to tell me anything now. First, you get better. Where did you find me?" I told her about the old road, about the pile of trash, about the flies. I saw tears running down her face as I spoke, washing away the rest of the dirt that had remained. I remember him pushing me out of the car. I remember the pain when I fell. Then I don't remember anything else. "You were almost..." I stopped. I didn't need to say she was almost dead. She knew. "Why did you help me?" The question hung in the air like the smell of coffee. Why indeed? Would anyone have helped? I wasn't so sure. Many people would pass by, afraid of getting involved, of causing trouble. "Because I had to help," I replied. "I couldn't leave you there." "Thank you so much," she whispered. "I don't know how I'm going to pay." "You don't have to pay anything. You just need to get well." During the days that followed, Louisa slowly gained strength. She walked around the house slowly, still a bit wary, but she was already able to bathe alone and eat without help. She was too polite, always asking permission for everything, as if she were afraid of bothering me. "Can I help in the kitchen?" she asked on the third day. "You don't need to. You're still recovering." "I can't stand still. I need to feel useful." I let her help. It was the best decision I had made in a long time. The house gained a new life, smells of homemade food, of baking bread, of washed clothes drying on the clothesline, sounds that I had forgotten. The sound of dishes being washed, footsteps in the hallway, a voice humming softly while sweeping the yard. She worked as if her life depended on it, always finding something to do. She washed, ironed, cooked, cleaned. She never complained, never asked for anything. She just thanked me every day for having a roof and food. "You don't need to work so hard," I said one afternoon, watching her hang clothes on the line under the hot sun. "I want to work. I don't know how to do nothing." But you're not an employee here. You're my guest." She stopped what she was doing and looked at me with those big eyes. "Then what am I?" she asked. "I'm not family. I'm not an employee. I'm not a visitor. What am I?" Good question. What was she indeed? A stranger I saved, a lost girl who needed care, or something more, something I didn't yet have the courage to admit. You're someone important," I said, unable to explain better. She smiled. It was a beautiful smile, which transformed her whole face, which made her eyes shine like 2 stars. "Important," she repeated, as if testing the taste of the word. "It's been a long time since anyone called me important." That night, sitting on the porch after dinner, she told me more about her life. Her sick mother, her stepfather becoming stranger and stranger after his wife's death, the night sleeping with the door locked. "I was afraid of him," she said, looking at the stars that were beginning to appear. "Very afraid. He looked at me in a way different, and he said things." "What kind of things?" "That I should be grateful, that he gave me a house and food for free, that I was becoming a young woman, that I needed to learn to return favors." Disgust rose in my throat like bile. Did he ever? No, he didn't. But he tried. There was one time he came into my room in the middle of the night. He was drunk, talking nonsense. I had to lock the door and sleep with a chair against it. The next day, he pretended he didn't remember anything. "Why didn't you seek help?" Who'd believe me? He's respected in town. He's got money. He knows everyone. I was just some orphaned girl living on handouts. Her story reminded me of my own loneliness, but magnified 1,000 times. At least I had good memories of my marriage. She only had memories of fear and rejection. "And how did you end up in that place?" She was quiet for a long time, as if gathering the courage to speak. "Yesterday morning," she began, her voice soft. "He woke me up early, said we were going for a drive, that he had a surprise for me. He took a bag in the car, said it was trash to throw away along the way. The words came out slowly, painfully. When we got to that place, he stopped the car and told me to get out. I thought he was going to pee or something. Then he took the bag and started throwing the trash on the ground. Then he pushed me and threw trash on top of me too." Her voice broke completely. "He said that was my place, that I wasn't good for anything anyway, that the middle of the trash was where I belonged. He said that no one would miss me. I felt such anger that I had to clench my fists to keep from heading straight to town to find that son of a bitch." "What's his name?" Valdecir Marquez. He's got a small ranch on the edge of town." I knew the name. A man who seemed respectable, but who had a reputation for being tough in business. I never imagined he was capable of such cruelty. "He'll pay for what he did," I said through gritted teeth. "No," she grabbed my arm. "Don't get involved with him. He's dangerous. He's got influential friends." "I don't care. I care. I don't want anything to happen to you because of me." The way she said it with genuine concern touched me. It had been years since anyone had worried about me. It had been years since I had felt important to someone. "All right," I said. "But if he comes here looking for trouble, he'll find it." "He won't come. He must think I'm dead. What if you're not? What if someone tells him there's a new girl at my ranch? Then we'll face it together," she said, taking my hand. Her hand was small and calloused but firm. And at that moment, for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel alone in the world. We stayed there on the porch late, listening to the crickets chirping and watching the moon rise over the rangeland. It was a sound of peace that contrasted with all the violence of her story, a moment of calm in the middle of the storm. "John," she said before we went to sleep, "what is it? Thank you for making me feel like a person again." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the truth was, she had also made me feel like a person again. She had given me a reason to wake up, to care, to live. That night, for the first time since Mary died, I slept peacefully. Not because I was at peace, but because I knew I had someone to protect, and I discovered that taking care of someone was the best medicine to heal a broken heart. On Wednesday of the following week, 2 weeks after finding Louisa, I woke up with a bad feeling. The sky was full of dark clouds that promised rain but didn't deliver. The cattle were restless in the pasture. The neighbors' dogs had been barking non-stop since dawn. Louisa noticed my nervousness during breakfast. "Is everything all right?" she asked, pouring a new cup of black coffee. "Just a silly feeling. Old man stuff. My mother always said that old people's feelings are wisdom, not nonsense." She was right. At 52, I had learned to trust the warnings my body gave me, and that day was full of bad signs. It was after lunch that I heard the sound of an engine coming up the dirt road. A familiar but unwelcome sound, new pickup truck, strained engine, coming too fast for a friendly visit. It was a white pickup, one of those new ones, kicking up a cloud of red dust that could be seen from afar. The engine made a dry, impatient noise, as if the driver was angry or in a hurry, or both. Louisa was in the kitchen doing dishes when she heard the sound. The pot slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a crash, scattering soapy water across the wooden floorboards. She didn't even notice the mess. "It's him," she whispered, white as a sheet. "He's come to get me." She didn't need to say who. From the way she spoke, from the terror in her eyes, I knew it was Valdecir. "Go to the bedroom and lock yourself in," I said, already heading for the closet in the living room where I kept my father's revolver. "John, no! Go! And don't come out for anything." She ran to the bedroom and I heard the key turn in the lock, then the heavy sound of the bed being dragged to block the door. Her fear was so great that it made my own fear increase tenfold. I grabbed the revolver and checked the bullets. It had been stored for years, since Mary asked me to hide it. She hated guns in the house, said they attracted violence. But now the violence had come even without the gun, and I needed to be prepared. The pickup stopped in front of the porch with a final roar of the engine. It took a while for the dust to settle, creating a red curtain between me and the visitor. When it finally settled, I could see the man who got out of the car. He was tall and a bit fat, with a bulging belly of someone who drinks too much beer and works too little. He wore a white dress shirt stained with sweat under the armpits, jeans too new to be work pants, an expensive leather hat on his head. Sunglasses covered his eyes, but didn't hide the arrogant expression on his mouth. "Good afternoon," he said, but the tone wasn't of greeting. It was of someone who comes to collect a debt. "Good afternoon," I replied from the porch without going down the steps. The higher position gave me some psychological advantage. He took off his glasses slowly and looked around, assessing the property with small, hard eyes. The eyes of a man used to getting what he wants, by force if necessary. He looked at the garden where Louisa had planted lettuce and tomato seedlings, at the clothesline with women's clothes hanging next to mine, at the porch where 2 chairs suggested company. "Nice little ranch," he commented, but the tone was mocking. "Well taken care of. Seems like there's a woman's touch here." "Yeah," I replied dryly. "I'm looking for my stepdaughter, a young woman, brown hair, thin. I heard you've been buying medicine and food for a woman in town." The information caught me by surprise. He had investigated, asked around, discovered that I no longer lived alone. Small town doesn't keep secrets from anyone. "Must be a mistake," I lied without blinking. "I live here alone." He laughed, but it was a joyless laugh, as dangerous as the sound a snake makes before striking. "Look, friend, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I know she's in there. She's my responsibility, you understand? Since her mother died, I'm the one who takes care of the girl. I have rights over her." "What kind of rights?" The question came out more aggressively than I intended. "Legal guardian rights. Rights of someone who gave a home and food to a useless bum who never gave anything in return." Disgust rose in my throat. He spoke of Louisa as if she were an object, a property that had escaped. "Guardian?" I repeated. "Is that what you call throwing a person in the trash?" The false smile disappeared from his face. He put his sunglasses in his shirt pocket and stared at me with eyes that had seen a lot of violence. So she is here, and she's already started spreading lies about me. Lies? Of course, the brat has always been a liar since she was little. She invented this crazy story to fool you. You fell for it like a sucker, didn't you? I saw where you left her. I saw the flies, the state she was in. You didn't see anything. That whore ran away from home and got into trouble. I just went to pick her up where she was. Every word that came out of his mouth was an offense. I went down the steps of the porch slowly, my right hand close to the handle of the revolver that was stuck in my waist. She's not going with you. Yes, she is. He took a step forward, showing that he wasn't afraid of physical confrontation. She's a minor. I'm her legal guardian. I can call the police if I want. You can call, I replied, stopping 2 yards from him. And I'll tell them where and how you left her. His face turned red with anger. I could see a vein bulging on his sweaty forehead. That whore lied. She's always been a liar since she was a little brat. She made up this whole story to manipulate you. She's smart. She knows how to use men. She's 18 years old, said a voice behind me. It was Louisa. She had left the room despite my orders and was standing at the kitchen door, pale as paper, trembling visibly, but with her head held high. I turned 18 last month. I'm not your responsibility anymore. Valdecir looked at her with a pure hatred that made my skin crawl. It was the look of a predator for the prey that escaped. Oh, really? He said, his voice dangerously low. And how are you going to support yourself, you useless thing? You can't do anything but cause trouble. Are you going to live off handouts your whole life? Better to live off the handouts of those who treat me well than to live with those who treat me like trash, she replied, and I could hear the shaky courage in her voice. You wretch! He took 2 steps towards the porch. After everything I did for you, house, food, clothes. In exchange for what? She shouted back, finding strength she didn't know she had. In exchange for looking at me naked, for trying to enter my room in the middle of the night, for saying that I had to return the favors. Lies, he yelled. All lies. You've always been a problematic brat. She said she's not going, I interfered, placing my hand on the handle of the revolver so he could see it. Conversation over. He sized me up from head to toe, calculating the chances in a fight. He was younger than me, physically stronger, but I was armed and determined. And on my property, I had the advantage. You don't know who you're messing with, old man, he said, his voice full of threat. I have important friends in town, people who can make your life a living hell. And you don't know who you're messing with either. I pulled out the gun and pointed it at the ground just so he could see I wasn't bluffing. This is my property. You weren't invited. The silence that followed was heavy as a stone. All that could be heard was the distant song of the flycatchers in the big mango tree and the mooing of the cattle in the pasture. Sweat trickled down my forehead, but I kept the gun steady and my eyes fixed on him. Back there, Louisa was holding onto the doorframe as if she was going to faint. Her fear was so palpable that I could feel it in the air. All right, said Valdecir after a time that seemed eternal. But this isn't over. I'll be back. And next time I won't come alone. He walked slowly to the pickup without taking his eyes off me. Before getting in the car, he stopped and turned to Louisa. You don't know what you've done, girl, you really don't. But you'll learn. Then he looked at me with a cold hatred. And you, friend, have gotten yourself into a bigger mess than you imagine. Much bigger. He started the engine and sped off, kicking up a cloud of dust that took a while to settle. The sound of the engine faded away down the road, but the threat hung in the air like the smell of a storm. We stood there, Louisa and I, listening to the silence returning slowly. She was trembling so much that she had to lean against the wall. Is it over? She asked in a weak voice. No, I replied, putting the gun away. He'll be back, and he'll bring company. She started to cry softly with relief and fear at the same time. I can leave, she said between sobs. "I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." "And go where?" The question hung in the air because she had no answer. She had nowhere to go. She didn't know anyone. She had no money. She had nothing but the clothes on her body and the protection I could offer. "You're staying," I said, holding her shoulders. "Whatever happens, you're staying. That man will never lay a hand on you again. But he said he has friends. And I have a gun, and the right on my side. It'll all be all right." I wasn't so sure about that, but she needed to hear words of reassurance. She needed to believe that there was still safety in the world. That night, I couldn't sleep well. I stayed awake, listening to every sound of the night. The wind in the leaves of the sagebrush, the hooting of the owls, the distant barking of the neighbors' dogs. Any different sound could be them coming back. Louisa didn't sleep either. I heard her walking around the room, moving furniture, probably blocking the door again. From time to time, a low sob reached me, muffled by the pillow. The next day, early in the morning, I went to town. I stopped at the police station and talked to Sheriff Ray, a serious man who had known my father since he was young and who always respected our family. "John, you did the right thing," he said after I told him the whole story without omitting anything. "This Valdecir is a complicated guy. He's been here a few times, always because of trouble with women. And what do you think he's going to do? Hard to say. He's right about one thing. He has powerful friends. He's the mayor's brother-in-law. He does business with a lot of important people in the region. And that means what? It means for you to be very careful. If he really wants to create trouble, it can be dangerous. The girl is 18 years old. He has no rights over her. Legally, you're right. But law and justice don't always go together, you know." I went back home with an even heavier heart. Louisa was waiting for me on the porch with an anxious expression that broke my heart. "So?" she asked before I even got out of the pickup. "The sheriff said you're right, you're of age. No one can force you to go back." She smiled for the first time since Valdecir's visit. It was a small smile, but it lit up her whole face. "But he can cause trouble for us," I added, not wanting to lie to her. "He has influential friends in town." The smile disappeared like sun behind clouds. "I can leave," she said again. "Look for work in another town, fend for myself. And let him win? Let him kick you out of yet another place? But I don't want you to—" "Louisa," I interrupted, holding her hands, "you don't understand. You saved me as much as I saved you. This house was dead. I was dead. You brought life back. I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me." Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were tears of gratitude. "So we face it together." Together. During the rest of the week, we tried to maintain the normal routine. She took care of the garden and the house. I took care of the cattle and the ranch chores. But there was a tension in the air, a feeling that something bad was coming. Valdecir didn't show up again, but his presence was felt. Strange cars were driving slowly by the road, as if they were watching. In town, some people started treating me differently, colder, more distant. "There's talk about you in town," Old Man Johnson, my closest neighbor, warned me one Thursday afternoon, saying you're living in sin with a young girl. "It's nothing like that. I know, but people talk anyway, and there are some spreading rumors that she ran away from home, that she's trouble." "Valdecir?" "Must be. He's got money. He knows everyone. It's easy for him to spread his version of the story." "And what's his version?" "That you kidnapped his stepdaughter, that she's underage and you're taking advantage of her." Anger rose hot in my chest. It was exactly the kind of thing a man like Valdecir would do. Use social influence to destroy our reputation before taking the next step. "Johnson, if anything happens to me, will you take care of Louisa?" "What kind of thing?" "Anything. If I disappear, if I turn up dead, if—" "John, you're getting paranoid." "Maybe. But do you promise?" "I promise, but I hope I don't have to keep that promise." That night, as we ate dinner in the kitchen lit by the kerosene lamp, the power had gone out again, Louisa told me more about Valdecir. things she hadn't had the courage to say yet. "He's not just an ordinary rancher," she said, stirring the beans on her plate without eating. "He does strange business. There are always different men going to the house, in the middle of the night. Expensive cars, people who don't seem from around here." My stomach sank. I was afraid to ask, but I needed to know. What kind of business? "I don't know for sure. My mother told me never to ask, never to listen to the conversations. But once I heard him on the phone talking about merchandise that was coming, about support points on the roads. Drugs? I think so. And other things." "What other things?" She looked at me with those big eyes, full of tears that refused to fall. "Girls," she whispered. "Young women who disappeared from town and were never seen again. He talked about special orders, about clients who paid well for—" She couldn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I understood everything, and the understanding made me feel nauseous. "That's why he wanted you back. It wasn't just out of malice," she nodded, confirming my worst fear. "It was because I was worth money to him. I always knew that, but I didn't want to believe it." "Louisa, why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I knew you would send me away. No one wants to get involved with those kinds of people. It's too dangerous." She was right. If I had known from the beginning that Valdecir was a criminal, I might have thought twice before getting involved. But now it was too late. I had already taken sides. I had already made my choice. I had already fallen for that brave girl. "It doesn't matter," I said, holding her hand across the table. "I don't change anything I did, nothing. Even knowing the danger, especially knowing the danger, that only confirms that I did the right thing." That Friday, 5 days after Valdecir's visit, I woke up with Louisa calling me softly. The room was still dark, but you could already feel the first light of dawn on the horizon. "John," she whispered, shaking my shoulder gently. "There are people on the road." I jumped up and went to the window. At the end of the road, parked with their headlights off, were 2 pickups. The white one I already knew, and another, black, older and more used. "How many are there?" I asked, already looking for clothes. "I don't know. They arrived recently. They're just standing there watching." My stomach froze. They had returned as promised, and they weren't alone. The situation I feared had arrived. "How long have they been there?" "About 10 minutes. They arrived slowly without making noise, with the headlights off." I looked at the clock. 5:30 in the morning. The perfect time for an action. Not too dark to make it difficult to see, not too light to be seen by the neighbors. "Louisa, listen carefully," I said, putting on my pants quickly. "If things get bad, you run through the back of the house and go straight to Old Man Johnson's ranch. He has a phone. He can call the police. And you? I'll try to hold them here long enough for you to escape." "No!" She grabbed my arm tightly. "We go together, or we don't go at all." "Louisa, be sensible. If we both stay, we both die. If you escape, at least one of us survives." "I don't care about dying," she said, looking straight into my eyes with a determination that surprised me. "I'd rather die here, with someone who treated me well, than be taken by them to spend the rest of my life as merchandise." The force in her words moved me and scared me at the same time. In a few days, the girl I found almost dead in the trash had transformed into a brave and determined woman. "Is there a gun of your mother's hidden?" I asked, remembering that many women in the countryside kept a protection. "Yes, there is. A small revolver that she hid in the pillowcase. She always slept with her hand nearby. Go get it and see if it has bullets." She left the room like a cat without making a sound. She returned 5 minutes later with a small gun in her hand, a .32 caliber revolver, a bit rusty from time, but clean and well cared for. "Is it loaded?" "It was when she died. We never touched it." I checked the cylinder. 5 bullets. It wasn't much, but together with the 6 in my revolver, it made 11 shots. Maybe it would be enough if there weren't too many men. "Do you know how to shoot?" My mother taught me the basics when I was 15. She said that every woman needed to know how to defend herself. then now we have a chance to fight on equal terms. Outside, the pickups were still parked in the same place. It was a psychological strategy to make us nervous, waiting, imagining what was going to happen. And it was working. My heart was beating so hard that it seemed like they could hear it from here. An hour later, when the sun began to rise on the horizon and clear the sky, we heard engines starting. One of the pickups began to move slowly along the road, approaching the house. "Here they come," I whispered. Louisa squeezed my hand tightly. It was cold and trembling, but firm. "Whatever happens," she said, "thank you for everything." "Don't talk like that. We'll get through this together. Promise me something." "What?" "If I die, don't let them take my body. Bury me here on the ranch, near the garden I planted." The simplicity of the request broke my heart. She just wanted a dignified place to rest, away from the hands that had tried to destroy her in life. "No one's going to die," I said, "but I promised anyway. But if anything happens, you're going to rest in peace." The white pickup stopped in the middle of the yard, kicking up dust. Valdecir got out alone, but I could see that there were more people inside the car. Shadows moving, guns reflecting the morning sun. "John!" he shouted from a distance. "Let's talk like civilized people." I didn't answer. We stayed crouched behind the living room window, watching every movement. "I know you're in there, and I know the girl is too. Last chance to resolve this without violence." The silence dragged on for a few minutes. Then he made a sign, and two men got out of the pickup. They were heavy types, with the face of someone who had done a lot of dirty work in their lives. "So you chose the hard way," shouted Valdecir. "Patience." That's when the second pickup appeared. It came slowly, stopping in a position that blocked our exit through the back. 3 more men got out, all armed with shotguns. We were surrounded. 5 men, I counted softly, watching through the crack in the curtain. All armed. Louisa was crouched beside me, holding her mother's revolver with both hands to control the tremor. Fear was etched on her face, but it wasn't a paralyzing fear. It was the fear of someone who knows they will have to fight to survive. "John Smith," Valdecir's voice echoed through the yard. "Last opportunity. Send the girl out and you stay alive." "And if I don't send her," I shouted back, "then things get ugly for everyone." I observed their positions. Valdecir was standing behind the white pickup, using the car as protection. 2 men had spread out along the side of the house, 1 on each side. The other 2 were in the back, blocking any escape through there. It was a well-planned operation. They knew what they were doing. "Louisa," I whispered, "is there anything about Valdecir that I need to know? Anything that can help us?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Enemies, fears, some weakness." She thought for a moment, her forehead furrowed in concentration. "He's afraid of the police," she said finally. "He always gets nervous when he sees a patrol car. Once when a patrol passed near the house, he didn't leave for a week." "Anything else?" "He drinks a lot. And when he drinks, he gets braver but also dumber. He does stupid things." "Is he drunk now?" "I don't know, it's too early." Outside, Valdecir began to walk around the yard, always protected by armed men. "You know what your problem is, John?" he shouted. "You got involved in a situation you don't understand. You thought it was just saving a damsel in distress, but it isn't." "What are you talking about?" "The girl didn't tell you everything, did she? Didn't say that she saw things she shouldn't have seen?" I looked at Louisa. She was pale, with an expression of guilt that confirmed that there were more secrets. "What things?" I asked softly. One night I heard him talking on the phone," she whispered. "Talking about some girls who had disappeared, about a judge who was asking too many questions." My blood ran cold. "And?" "I heard him say the judge's name and where the man lived. The next day, it appeared in the newspaper that the judge had died in a car accident. You think that?" "I'm sure of it. Valdecir ordered the man killed." The dimension of the danger we were in became clear all at once. We weren't just dealing with a human trafficker. We were dealing with someone capable of killing anyone who got in his way. That's why he wants you back. I understood. You're a witness. I am. And that's why he'll never stop looking for me. Unless what? Unless I die. The fear in her voice made my heart clench. She was right. Valdecir couldn't leave a witness alive, especially one who had escaped and could talk. "John!" shouted Valdecir outside. "I'm going to count to 10. If the girl doesn't appear, we're going to go in there and get her. 1! I grabbed the revolver more firmly. 2! Louisa, when I say so, you run to the kitchen and out the back. 3! I'm not leaving you alone. 4! Yes, you are. That's an order. 5! I never obeyed a man's order. I'm not going to start now. 6! I looked at her and saw the determination in her dark eyes. It was the same as Mary had when she made a decision. Stubborn as a mule and brave as a lion. 7! Then we'll stay together, I decided. But if things get bad, you promise you'll try to escape. 8! I promise. 9! I took a deep breath, preparing for what was to come. 10! Shouted Valdecir. Time's up! The first shot came from the side of the house. The living room window shattered, scattering shards of glass across the floor. Louisa screamed and threw herself on the floor, covering her head with her hands. To the kitchen! I shouted, crawling through the hallway. We got there just as another shot hit the living room wall, tearing off a large piece of wood. They were shooting to intimidate, not to kill yet. They wanted to force us out. "John!" Valdecir's voice echoed. "There's still time to be sensible. Send the girl out." "Go to hell," I shouted back. "Then burn it all down," I heard him shout to the men. My heart stopped. Burn it? They were going to set the house on fire? The smell came before the sound. Gasoline. Someone was pouring fuel on the external walls of the house. "They're going to set it on fire," said Louisa, sniffing the smell. Sons of bitches. We had maybe 5 minutes before the house turned into a bonfire. We needed to get out, but getting out meant certain death at their hands. "John, remember what you said about the cellar?" Louisa asked suddenly. The cellar. I had completely forgotten. My father had built an underground shelter behind the wood stove, with a secret exit that led to an old storage shed on the other side of the pasture. It was our only chance. "Come on," I said, lifting the trap door that was hidden behind the stove. We went down the makeshift ladder at the moment we heard the sound of the fire starting. Shouts outside, the sound of wood crackling, the smell of smoke coming down the trap door. "Which way?" whispered Louisa in the dark. I fumbled along the walls until I found the passage. It was a low tunnel that my father had dug in the rock for months, connecting the house to the old storage shed. We were going to have to crawl, but it was our only way out. "Follow me," I whispered, "and don't make noise." We advanced in complete darkness, tripping over roots and stones. Above us, we heard Valdecir shouting orders and the men ransacking the burning house, looking for our bodies. "Where did you get to?" His voice echoed, furious. "You can't have disappeared." 10 minutes later, we came out in an abandoned storage shed on the other side of the pasture. The morning sun blinded us for a moment. We were far from the house, protected by an elevation of the terrain that hid us. From our position, we could see the house on fire. The wooden walls were burning quickly, sending columns of black smoke into the blue sky. Everything I had built in life was turning to ashes. "I'm so sorry," whispered Louisa, tears running down her dirty face. "It was just wood and brick," I replied, but I felt my heart clench. "The important thing is here with me." She held my hand tightly. "What now?" "Now we're going to the road and ask for help." We walked along the edge of the pasture, using the trees as protection. Far away, we could still see Valdecir's men looking for us in the smoking rubble. That's when we heard the sound of sirens approaching. "Police," said Louisa. "Old Man Johnson must have seen the smoke and called." 3 patrol cars came up the road, kicking up dust, sirens blaring. They stopped in a tactical formation in front of what was left of the house, blocking any escape. "Police!" echoed a voice with a megaphone. "Drop your weapons!" From our hiding place, we saw Valdicir and his men looking at each other, undecided. They were surrounded, but still armed. "Negotiate!" shouted Valdicir back. "We didn't do anything." "Arson and illegal possession of weapons," replied the megaphone. "Surrender." "It was self-defense," Valdicir lied. "They attacked us first." That's when we appeared on the road. "Sheriff!" I shouted, waving to the patrol cars. "Here! We're here!" Sheriff Ray saw us and ran towards us, followed by 2 deputies. "John, thank God, we thought you had died in the fire. We got out through the cellar tunnel." Old man Johnson saw the smoke and called. Said he heard gunshots too. "Valdicir and his men, they burned down my house to force us out." "How many are there?" 5, all armed. Valdicir himself and 4 others. The sheriff said something on the radio, then turned to us. "You stay here, protected. We'll take care of this." But Valdicir wasn't willing to surrender. When he saw that we had escaped, he was furious. "Damn you!" he yelled from a distance. "You should have died in the fire." "Drop your weapon, Valdicir!" shouted the sheriff with the megaphone. "You're surrounded!" "Never!" he replied, raising his shotgun. What followed was a shootout that lasted almost 20 minutes. Bullets whistling everywhere, deafening noise of firearms, shouts and curses. One of Valdicir's men was hit in the leg and surrendered screaming. Another tried to escape running and was taken down by the deputies. Valdicir and 2 accomplices entrenched themselves behind the pickups, firing at the police, but they were at a numerical and positional disadvantage. "Surrender, Valdicir!" shouted the sheriff during a pause in the shooting. "There's no way to escape." "I'd rather die," he shouted back. "I'm not going to jail." And that's what happened. At the end of the shootout, Valdicir was dead behind the white pickup with 3 shots in the chest. One of the accomplices had also died. The third surrendered when he saw that he was alone. "It's over," said the sheriff, coming to us. "Valdicir is dead. The others were arrested or fled." "It's really over?" asked Louisa, still trembling. "It's over. No one will come after you anymore." We stood there in the middle of the road, hugging, watching the firefighters put out what was left of the house. Smoke still rose from the rubble, but the fire had been controlled. "I'm so sorry about the house, John," said the sheriff. "I'm not," I replied, surprising myself. "It was just wood and brick. I saved what was important." I looked at Louisa. She looked back at me with those big eyes, as if she didn't believe it was over, that she was really free. "What's important is that we're alive," I added, "and together." At that moment, in the middle of the dusty road, with the destroyed house smoldering behind us and the body of the man who almost killed us being covered by a sheet, I understood something important. Life isn't about what we lose, it's about what we save, and I had saved the most precious thing I found in my entire life. A brave girl who taught me that there is always hope, even in the middle of the trash. Now, it was time to start over, together. 3 months after the fire, Louisa and I were living in a rented house in town while we rebuilt the ranch. It was a small place, 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it was ours. For the first time since we met, we could live without fear, without looking over our shoulders. 3 months after the fire, Louisa and I were living in a rented house in town while we rebuilt the ranch. It was a small place, 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it was ours. For the first time since we met, we could live without fear, without looking over our shoulders. The nights were the best part. After dinner, we would sit on the tiny porch watching the street life and making plans for the future. She was different, more relaxed, more smiling. The constant fear she carried in her eyes had disappeared. "I want a bigger kitchen in the new house," she would say, sewing a curtain for the living room window. "With a wood stove like you had." "I want a big porch," I would answer, "for us to sit watching the sunset. I want a garden full of flowers, roses, jasmine, sunflowers." "I want an extra room," she said one night a little awkwardly. "What for?" "For when we have kids." The word kids caught me by surprise. I hadn't thought about it in years, since Mary died. I thought that part of my life had ended along with her. You want to have kids with me? I asked. I want everything with you, John. House, kids, whole life. The simplicity of the answer moved me. She spoke of the future as if it were a certainty, as if there were no doubt that we were going to be together forever. I already had 42 years of life without you, I said, pulling her closer. I don't want even one more day. It was that night that we really became a couple. Not just two people who protected each other, but two people who loved each other. We made love slowly, carefully, as if we were going to break each other. Then we lay in the narrow bed, listening to the crickets chirping through the open window and planning every detail of our life together. John, she said, her head on my chest. What is it? Do you feel guilty because of Mary? The question caught me off guard. I expected this conversation to come one day, but I wasn't prepared. Sometimes, I answered honestly. Not guilty of loving you, but guilty of being happy when she can no longer be. Do you think she would approve? Mary always wanted me to be happy. If she could choose someone to take care of me, it would be someone like you. Like me? Strong, brave, caring. Someone who doesn't let me get stuck in sadness. She was quiet for a while, drawing circles on my chest with her finger. I'm not jealous of her, she said finally. I'm grateful. If she hadn't taught you to love, you wouldn't know how to love me. Her emotional maturity surprised me every day. At 18, she understood things about love that many people take a lifetime to learn. The reconstruction of the ranch began the following month. The insurance covered part of the losses. I had to sell some cattle to buy material, but we managed. Louisa worked by my side as if she had been born for it, carrying bricks, mixing cement, painting walls. I never imagined I would like heavy work so much, she said one afternoon, all dirty with white paint. I never imagined I would have such a hard-working companion, I replied, wiping a paint stain from her face. Companion, she repeated, testing the word. I like that. It's better than girlfriend or fiancé. Why? Because companion is someone who stays by your side in difficult times. It's someone who builds together, suffers together, dreams together. The house was finished in May, smaller than the previous one, simpler but cozy. 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen with a wood stove, a spacious living room, and the porch I wanted. Louisa made sure to plant a larger garden than the first, and a garden full of flowers in the front. This house has a soul, she said on the day we moved in. The other was beautiful, but this one was made with love. She was right. Every brick, every board, every nail had been placed by the two of us together. It was our real home, built with our dreams and our sweat. The whole neighborhood helped with the move. Old Man Johnson brought a dining table he made with his own hands. Mrs. Davis sent a set of new pots and pans. The pastor came to bless the house in a simple ceremony that moved me to tears. May God bless this home, he said, sprinkling holy water through the rooms, and may it always be full of love and happiness. During the months that followed, we got used to the routine of a couple. She took care of the house and the garden. I took care of the cattle and the ranch chores. We ate dinner together every day, divided the housework, talked about everything. But it was only in August that the news came that would change everything forever. Louisa had been nauseous in recent weeks, too sleepy and without appetite. We thought it was exhaustion from the heavy work of construction, until she missed 2 periods in a row. I think I'm pregnant, she said one morning while preparing coffee. I dropped the cup. The sound of the dishes shattering on the floor echoed through the silent kitchen. Pregnant? The signs are all there. Nausea, sleepiness, lateness. I need to go to the doctor to confirm. I went with her to town that same afternoon. Dr. Miller, who had delivered half the population of Harmony, confirmed what we already knew. 2 months, he said, smiling. Congratulations to both of you. We left the office hugging, laughing like 2 teenagers. On the street, everyone looked at us as if we had gone crazy. two adults laughing alone in the middle of the sidewalk. "We're going to have a baby!" I shouted to the world, lifting Louisa in my arms. "John, put me down!" she laughed. "They'll think we're crazy." I am crazy, crazy with happiness. That night, sitting on the porch of the new house, we made plans for the baby. "If it's a boy, I want to name him Joseph, like your father," she said. "And if it's a girl, Mary, like your wife." The name moved me. Since Louisa came into my life, Mary had become a soft presence, a good longing that no longer hurt. "You're not jealous of her?" I asked again. "How am I going to be jealous of someone who gave me the best gift of my life?" "What gift?" "You. If she hadn't existed, you wouldn't be the man you are. You wouldn't know how to love me, how to take care of me." Her wisdom continued to surprise me. "But before the baby is born, we have to resolve one thing," she said, becoming serious. "What?" "Marriage. I don't want to have a child without being married on paper." It was true. We lived as husband and wife. We divided everything. We were a family, in fact, but not officially. "You want to marry me?" I asked, as if it were a formal request. "Only if you want to marry me." "I do. Very much. Since the first day you smiled in this house. Then it's decided." We scheduled the wedding for September, before the belly appeared too much. It would be in the town church, a simple ceremony, only with the closest friends. Louisa had already started sewing her own dress, a simple white cotton model that enhanced her natural beauty, but fate had other plans for us. In August, after 4 months without a drop of water, the clouds finally began to form on the horizon. Dark, heavy clouds, loaded with the rain that the parched earth desperately asked for. It was a Thursday when the storm approached. It started in the middle of the afternoon, with distant thunder rumbling through the mountains like war drums. Then the wind got strong, bending the trees, raising whirlwinds of red dust. The cattle ran under the trees, the birds hid, even the dogs were restless. "It's going to rain!" shouted Louisa from the porch, looking at the sky that darkened for minutes. "It's not going to," I replied, closing the cattle pen. "These clouds always pass right by. I'm used to it." But this time it didn't pass. The first drop fell when I was putting the tools away in the shed. Thick, warm, making a dark mark on the dry earth, then another, and another. In a few minutes it was raining like it hadn't rained in years. I ran home soaked, shouting with joy like a boy. Louisa was waiting for me on the porch, her eyes shining with happiness, one hand on her belly where our child was growing. "Rain!" I shouted, climbing the steps of the porch. "Real rain!" "The earth was dying of thirst," she said, reaching out to feel the thick drops. We stood there watching the water wash the world. The smell of wet earth rose strong and sweet, that unique perfume that only exists in the rangeland after the first rain of the season. The sound of the water hitting the tin roof was like celestial music. "John," said Louisa suddenly, turning to me with a decided expression. "Let's get married." We scheduled it for September. "No, now. Today. In the rain." "What do you mean, in the rain?" "Right here. Just the two of us. You don't need a pastor, you don't need paper, you just need love." I looked at her, confused but intrigued. "But it has no legal validity." "I don't care about paper," she said, stepping off the porch and standing in the middle of the yard. "I want God to be our witness. I want the rain to be our blessing." The rain soaked the simple dress, sticking the clothes to her body, making her dark hair stick to her face. She looked like an apparition, an angel that had come down from heaven along with the water. "Come on," she held out her hand to me. "Marry me in the rain." I stepped off the porch and stood in front of her. The water soaked us completely, but it didn't matter. Nothing mattered but that magical moment. "John Smith," she said, holding my hands while the rain ran down our faces. "Do you agree to be my husband? In joy and in sorrow, in health and in sickness, in rain and in drought?" Her voice was almost lost in the noise of the storm, but every word came clear in my heart. "I do," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. And you, Luisa Santos, do you agree to be my wife forever? I do, forever and a day more. We kissed under the rain while the lightning lit up the sky and the thunder echoed through the mountains like fireworks salutes. It was the most beautiful wedding anyone could have, just the two of us, God as a witness and nature celebrating with us. When we entered the house, soaked and happy, we were officially husband and wife, at least in what really mattered, in the heart. We made love that night with a renewed passion, as if we were different people, as if we were really newlyweds, because we were. The following month, we had the official ceremony in the church. Luisa wore the white dress she had sewn, with a belly already appearing discreetly. I wore the suit from my wedding with Mary. She herself had suggested it. Your first wife is part of our story, she said. I'm not going to pretend she didn't exist. The pastor married us in an emotional ceremony. Old Man Johnson was my best man. Mrs. Davis was Luisa's bridesmaid. Afterwards, there was a party at our house with accordion music, treats made by the neighborhood, and lots of joy. But for us, the real wedding had been in the rain. That moment was kept only for us, as a precious secret that no one else in the world knew. Joseph Mary was born on a March morning, when the rangeland was green and flowered after the summer rains. A chubby and healthy baby with dark hair like his mother and light eyes like his father. When I held him for the first time in the town hospital, I cried like a child. He's just like you, said Luisa from the bed, tired but radiant. He has your eyes, I replied, looking at that little being who was part of me and part of her. He's going to be hard-working like his father and stubborn like his mother. We took Joseph home on a morning of golden sun. The road that had once been dirt was now paved, part of a state government project, but the ranch remained the same. The new house, the blooming garden, the fat cattle grazing in the green fields. We're home, Joseph, Luisa said to the baby in her arms. Home. The word had taken on a completely new meaning. It wasn't just a place where we lived. It was where our family grew, where we planted dreams, where we built a future with our own hands. The first months with the baby were about adaptation. Sleepless nights, crying at dawn, the routine completely changed. But they were also the happiest months of my life, seeing Luisa as a mother, seeing that baby growing and discovering the world, participating in every small achievement. Look, John, Luisa shouted one June afternoon. He smiled, he really smiled. I ran from the garden to see. Joseph was in the crib that Old Man Johnson had made, looking at his mother with a toothless smile that lit up my whole day. It's his first smile, she said, with tears of joy in her eyes. For you. The first smile was for his mother. For both of us. We are a family. Family. I never thought that word could be so beautiful, so full of meaning. When Joseph turned 1 year old, Luisa came with news. I'm pregnant again, she said one night after putting the boy to sleep. Again? I almost dropped my coffee cup. 2 months. A girl this time, I'm sure. How do you know? Mother's intuition. And the morning's sickness is different. She was right. Mary Joseph was born in May of the following year, a small and delicate baby with blonde hair like the grandmother she never knew. When I held her for the first time, I thought of Mary, and I was sure that she was smiling from where she was. Now the circle is complete, said Luisa, watching me cradle the girl. Joseph Mary and Mary Joseph, the names completing each other. Like our lives have completed each other. Today, 3 years after the birth of Mary Joseph, as I write this story on the porch that we built together, I see Joseph playing in the yard with his little sister. He teaches her to walk. She tries to copy everything her brother does. Luisa is in the kitchen preparing dinner, humming softly a song she invented for the children. Sometimes, when the sun is setting and the light turns golden over the rangeland, I remember the day I found Luisa in the middle of the trash, a girl almost dead, surrounded by flies, without hope in the world. and I think about how mysterious the way life works is, how two lost hearts can meet in the most unlikely circumstances, how love can be born in the middle of pain, flourish in tragedy, grow in the simplicity of everyday life, how a simple decision to stop to help someone can change two lives forever. "What are you thinking about?" asks Louisa, approaching with a steaming cup of coffee. "About how lucky I was." "Lucky? To have turned onto that old road, to have stopped when I saw you, to have had the courage to help." She sits next to me in the wide rocking chair that we made for two. "It wasn't luck," she says, running her hand through my hair that is now grey. "It was destiny. We were lost, and we found each other. Do you think your mother would approve of all this happiness?" "I'm sure. She always said that God doesn't abandon those who have a good heart, and that every pain has a purpose, even when we don't understand it." "What was the purpose of your pain?" "To prepare me to recognize goodness when it appeared. To teach me to value every gesture of affection, every moment of peace." Joseph comes running to the porch, with Mary Joseph behind, trying to keep up with her little legs. "Daddy!" he shouts. "Tell the story of how you found Mommy." It's his favorite story. Every night he asks me to tell how I found his mother on an old road and brought her home. Of course, I adapted the version for children. I omitted the harshest parts, turned it into a fairy tale with a happy ending. "Once upon a time there was a very sad and lonely rancher," I begin, picking them both up. "Who found a lost princess," completes Joseph, who already knows the story by heart, "and brought her to his castle," babbles Mary Joseph, who is learning to speak. "And they lived happily ever after," finishes Louisa, kissing their little heads. Happily ever after. It's a fairy tale ending, but it's also our reality. Not a perfect happiness without problems or difficulties, but a real happiness built in the day-to-day, based on love, respect, and mutual care. After dinner, after putting the children to sleep, Louisa and I return to the porch. It's our moment of the day when we talk about everything and nothing, when we plan the future and remember the past. "John," she says, looking at the stars that are beginning to appear in the dark sky, "what is it?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For teaching me that every end can be a new beginning, that there is always hope, even when we think we have lost everything. You taught me that. You brought me back to life. We saved each other. And that's how I end this story. Not with great events or dramatic revelations, but with the simplicity of two people who met when they needed it most and built a meaningful life together. Because sometimes life surprises us. Sometimes, when we think there is nothing left to do, that the future only holds loneliness and sadness, someone appears who changes everything. Someone who reminds us that it is worth believing in human kindness. Sometimes it is necessary to lose everything to discover what really matters. Sometimes it is necessary to cross the deepest valley to reach the highest mountain. Sometimes it is necessary to find someone lost to find yourself too. But always, always, it is worth having compassion. It is worth stopping to help. It is worth believing that tomorrow can be better than today, because that's what happened to us. A casual meeting in the middle of the trash turned into a family in the middle of paradise. A story that began with flies and tears, ended with laughter and hope. And if someone asked me what was the most important day of my life, I wouldn't know how to answer. Whether it was when I met Mary, who taught me to love. Whether it was when I lost Mary, who taught me about pain. Whether it was when I found Louisa, who taught me about new beginnings. Whether it was when we got married in the rain, who taught me about faith. Whether it was when Joseph was born, who taught me about fatherhood. Whether it was when Mary Joseph arrived, completing our family. In fact, all these days were important, because they all brought me here, to this moment, to this porch, to this family that I didn't know was possible. Life is like that, made of losses and finds, of endings and beginnings, of storms and calm. The secret is to never give up believing that no matter how dark the sky is, there is always a rain of hope wanting to fall. And when it falls, it is necessary to have the courage to stand still under it. It is necessary to let it wash away all the pain, all the bitterness, all the fear. It is necessary to open your arms and your heart to receive what life wants to give us. Because sometimes what life wants to give us is much more than we ever dreamed of deserving. Today, when I look at my family, at my house, at my life, I know that I have been blessed beyond measure. Not because I didn't have problems or because everything was easy, but because I learned that true wealth is in the people we love and who love us back. Louisa is pregnant again. We discovered it last week. It will be our third child, and she is sure it's a boy. She wants to name him Johnson in honor of the neighbor who saved our lives. 3 children, she said, her hand on her belly that doesn't show the pregnancy yet. A big and noisy family. Like I always dreamed, I replied, even if they aren't your blood children? The question caught me by surprise. It was true that Joseph and Mary Joseph weren't biologically mine. They were children of the love that was born between me and Louisa, but I never thought of them as not mine. They are my children of the heart, I said, and the heart doesn't distinguish blood from love. Our children will have the luck that I didn't have, she said. They will grow up in a house full of love. They will grow up knowing that they are loved without conditions. And they will learn that family is not just who is born together, it's who chooses to stay together. As I write these last words, the neighbor's rooster is already crowing, announcing a new day. Soon Joseph and Mary Joseph will wake up, full of energy and mischief. Louisa will prepare breakfast, humming, I will take care of the cattle before the sun gets too hot. One more day in the simple and happy life that we built together. One more day to be grateful for everything we have. One more day to remember that the best encounters in life happen when we least expect them. Because between emptiness and hope, there is a bridge called love. And sometimes, to cross it, you just need to have the courage to extend a hand to someone who needs help. Because by saving the other, we save ourselves too. There are encounters in life that change everything. There are people who arrive when we need them most, disguised as chance, but bringing destiny. There are stories that begin in the trash and end in paradise, because love has the power to transform any ending into a new beginning. And there are men who discover at 50 years old that life still has much to offer to those who do not give up believing in human goodness.